Hello everyone, my name is Daniel and I'm just a casual racer, and today we're in Le Mans Ultimate. I'm going to be showing you what I recommend for the Thrustmaster T150/TMX wheelbases in terms of force feedback settings. So if we jump into the settings here, go under Controls, Force Feedback, you'll see, obviously we want to turn the force feedback effects on, so you'll need to invert the force feedback for your Thrustmaster TMX and T150 wheelbase. They have a peak Newton meter of torque of 2 Newton meters, so you'll want to set that there, which I find is quite a cool way to do it in a racing title, is to base kind of your peak to avoid some clipping based on the actual peak torque of the base itself. So that's really cool. We got 99% force feedback strength. I know that's a little bit on some of my other force feedback recommendations. I'm closer to 90% or at 90% for a lot of wheelbases just to avoid clipping, but we only got 2 Newton meters of force to play with. So in my opinion, I pushed this up. Yeah, we might have a little bit of clipping, but right, we still want to feel things, and to me, this still feels the best. If you're going to change anything, I would reduce this. So maybe bring it down 95%, 90% if you really feel like maybe there isn't enough detail there. Although I think you're going to find this is right on the point. You're going to want a little bit of force feedback smoothing. I've been messing around with this a little more the last few days, actually, or yesterday and today. And I found that it seems like going higher than this gets almost worse, and then low. So 1 seems to be quite the optimal setting. Is 0 if you're like on a direct drive, and then 1 if you're on a belt or gear driven base, just to smooth out that force feedback inputs. This was 40. This is good. I haven't really figured out a huge difference with this, whether you change it up, but 40 is right in the middle of the available options, and it seems to work quite well with the rest of the force feedback. Minimum steering torque, you're going to want to boost this all the way up to 5%. We're using a very weak wheel to get the most detail out of it. We're going to use the 5%. We're going to smooth it a little bit, so it's going to feel real nice. We'll get back to the car-specific force feedback strength, but generally for most of the cars, it's going to be at 100%. This right here, you don't want to go lower, and going higher doesn't really do a lot other than maybe muddy the force feedback. I've been doing a little more experimenting with this as well. Seems to be you go up to 20, 50%. Anything higher, it starts to make the force feedback more muddy, maybe a little bit stronger. And if you go less, you lose just strength and detail and stuff. So 10% is the default, and 10% is where it should stay for sure. You're going to want to bring up your curb pull strength to 150%. And then just generally, I've been kind of following the trend of just pushing, or creating the trend, I guess, of pushing the collision strength just 10% higher than whatever I have my curb pull strength at. So this is high. You may encounter some clipping from this, but you do need this to get a realistic reaction through your wheel to actually notice, oh wait, it's pulling my wheel when you go over a curb, especially at high speed. A curb update threshold, you want that at 0.5 just to, once again, get kind of a boost on the low end when you go over a curb, and you'll feel the ripples of the curbs, which feels really good. And then torque sensitivity, you'll want to have this at 100%, and any lower and you're just losing a strength, any higher and it starts to get muddy. So 100% is about smack on for this wheelbase. And then of course you do not want to use the constant steering force effects, leave that off. So now getting into kind of the final point that I want to touch on is right now the Hypercars as of day 2 are still not quite there in terms of just generally the force feedback, but also just the force feedback strength. So you're going to want to increase this up to 120% or so, maybe 125%. That's what I run with the Ferrari. And you do that by going into this menu. Now you can change it mid-race. You'll go into the menu, hit on controls, and then go to the force feedback, and that'll allow you to make this change. But it is kind of annoying if you're going back and forth between the Hypercars and like the LMP2 and the GTE cars. But I mean, in my opinion right now, the Hypercars just aren't a very good experience. So hopefully once that kind of gets adjusted, and they'll get a nice little update, and then we won't have to worry about this at all in the future. So you'll be able to just ignore this section of the video. But the rest of the cars I find with these settings to be a fantastic driving experience, a lot of good force feedback. And even with the Hypercars, you still, like I said, as long as you boost this, you'll have a good understanding of what's going on with the car. So hopefully this is helpful and allows you to get the most out of Le Mans Ultimate. I've been having a lot of fun driving this game and playing in it these last couple of days, and hopefully this helps you out. But most of all, I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your week.